books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book, How to Be a Good Roommate, How to Be a Good House Guest, and How to Be a Gracious Host. No other than Miss Nikki Allen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Nikki. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, so I am Nikki Allen. I am a singer, songwriter, author, speaker, visionary, entrepreneur. I'm originally from Chicago, and I am now venturing off into this author world, even though this book has been out a little bit, but I also have a new book that just was released. So that's me, singing, writing,
Yes.
that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yes, indeed, Miss Nikki Allen. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. What inspired you to write book tackling all three roles: roommate, house guest, and as a host?
Oh, because I've been one of each, and in each scenario, it's like you try to figure out what is wrong with this person. Like you think things are common sense. There is no real guide on how to be any of it. So, I just thought maybe I'd throw my little 2 cents in there. What do I know, right? But yeah, so that's what made me do it because I've had some serious experiences being on all three ends. So.
Interesting, Miss Nikki. And what's the single most common mistake people make across all three of these living or hosting situations?
Overextending themselves. I've had roommates that don't want to leave. I've had hosts that don't want you to leave, or they think because you're in their space that they have access to, what you brought, which is yours. Yeah. And then you have the house guest that just doesn't want to leave. So it's just always somebody overdoing their role. So I think that's the common thread.
How does understanding the perspective of the other side, like a good guest understanding the host view, make someone better in their role?
It seems just people, and this is everybody. We're all guilty of this. We see things from just our standpoint. Let's say if you're a roommate and I come stay with you, Daniel, I have in my mind, this is how I operate. I think people forget that you're in someone else's space and to respect the space, so I think that's the perspective, is to get people to respect other people's spaces, to have that clear understanding. And I think this book for me was, if you read it, maybe you'll get a better understanding of the perspective that you should really see, your vantage point of it.
Very well said, Miss Nikki.
Woo-woo.
Very well said. Beyond cleanliness and paying bills, what's the most underrated quality of truly great roommate?
Underrated quality of a truly good roommate. Well, you know what? I haven't had a truly good roommate. So I don't know how to answer that one, because even in college, I ended up getting my own, having the room to myself, my dorm to myself, because my roommate was just atrocious. So yeah, me and roommates, I don't know, I haven't run into a good one. My daughter, her roommates weren't great either. As a matter of fact, I told her to give her roommate the book so they could come to some sort of understanding. So I have no answer for that one.
So no comment.
No comment, exactly.
And how do you recommend roommates navigate the often tricky conversation about establishing boundaries before issues arise?
So I think before, you, and it depends because I had a roommate that was um in desperate need of housing. So you don't really have time. It's like, hey, this is happening. Can I come stay with you for a week or a day or however long? And you're kind of thrust in a situation and you don't want to, you don't want somebody on the street, so you say yes, right? And that can be kind of problematic because you don't have time to really sit down and establish the rules, but you do have to, at some point, the two of you have to have that come to Jesus moment and sit down and go, hey, this is what I expect, whether it's don't touch my music because that happened to me. Somebody actually stole some of my music. Um, or hey, when you have a drink of water, make sure you wash your glass, however you do it, but before before you guys really get into that roommate situation, you need to have a serious conversation. And I think little contracts, are advisable, and also especially if it's a roommate, like they have their own room and you have your own room. Let's talk about the boundaries. Let's put it on paper. Maybe put it on the refrigerator. I'm doing dishes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're doing them Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And the dog does them the extra day. I don't know, but just sit and you have to have a clear plan. So that way, when that person doesn't do the dishes or doesn't rinse out their glass or whatever it is that's gonna irk you, you have it in writing. Hey, this is what we agreed upon. That's all.
Miss Nikki, let's talk about how to be a good house guest. What are the absolute non negotiable do's and don'ts for any house guest, regardless of how close they are to the house?
Yeah, do set boundaries, do set expectations. You have to, but do not invade whatever part of the house, room, whatever. Don't invade that privacy. Um, Going through their things. Um, you know that for me was the biggest thing. Someone went through my stuff and took it, and I'm looking for things and it's like, oh, I borrowed that. No, you didn't borrow that. You basically stole it because I knew nothing about you borrowing it. So, you have to establish boundaries on one end and be respectful still on the other, because I think house guests, the hosts actually feel, well, this is my place. You're in my space. I can do what I want, and that's really not fair, and it shouldn't happen.
Definitely. How can guests gracefully figure out host expectations without
Um,
being annoying?
I'm always annoyed. No, I'm just joking. Again, it's having clear boundaries when you go in. Someone's, hey, I have 10 suitcases. Is that okay? If where can I put them? Because 10 suitcases is a lot to bring to somebody's space. But if that's what you have, like, you need to give them a heads up, because if you come in with something that like 10 suitcases and they weren't expecting that, you've already pissed them off. So that stay is probably not going to be very comfortable for either of you.
Definitely. And what's your stance on the perfect hostess gift? If is it necessary? If it's so, what makes it perfect?
I'm sorry, for a host,
Yes, perfect hostess.
a perfect
Host.
host. Yeah, just really, you know, you're inviting someone into your home, um, and you want them to feel comfortable and you want them to feel welcome. So whatever that is in your life, like, then roll out that red carpet for them. You don't have to overdo it. I would never say that, but whatever's comfortable, because it depends on who you're hosting. Is it some kids? Is it a friend? Is it an ex? Is it an ex? So figure out how much of this gracious, how much of a host, how gracious of a host you want to be. So I think that's that.
What's the biggest misconception guests have about how long a visit is appropriate or welcome?
I think the biggest misconception is, and I had this happen to me, because we're cool and because we're getting along, uh, your 2 weeks that you said I could stay can turn into 3 weeks or a month or so. And no, no, and that literally happened to me. Somebody asked me if they could stay 2 weeks, and 2 months later, I literally had to pack their stuff up, and they were so good. Every time I was like, hey, it's time for you to go. I have this, I have that. And the waterworks would come to crying, and so then I'd feel guilty, and then I'd let them stay. That's how it ended up being 2 months. So I figured, I got to get ahead of this thing. So when they left for wherever they were going, I packed up all their stuff, and had it in a bag and set it outside the door. So when they got there, they knocked on the door. I opened it. I was like, hey, there's your stuff. I told you I can't do this anymore. And it is what it
Yes,
is.
indeed. And before we discuss about how to be a gracious host as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Um, Short term right now, uh, we didn't mention it, but I just released a new novel, which is my first novel ever. So I really, really want to focus on that. I'm actually a screenwriter, so trying to write a book is a different beast altogether. This book that you have here is only like 32 pages because I'm a Capricorn, so I'm very direct and straight to the point. So I say that to say, as a screenwriter, it's very easy to write screenplays for me because you don't have to get into the various details. So writing a novel, um, quite different. I turned the screenplay into a novel, and then I realized I got to fill this thing up because I got to talk about what they're smelling, or how the crisp breeze went by, because and when you're actually shooting a movie, you can see the breeze going by and you know how crisp it is based on the hair blowing. So my long-term goal is to really get better at that creation, and just maybe starting a novel from scratch, because like I said, this one was a screenplay that I turned into a novel. And yeah, so that's it. Short term, focusing on the new release, and long term, just getting better.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Nikki,
Thank you.
and looking forward for more and more success. And
Thank you.
what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you?
Well, my mom told me almost every day of my life, you can do anything you want to do as long as you put your mind to it. So that would be my advice to everyone. Where there's a will, there's a way. I'm doing all the cliches right now, but they're true, And this book, I was just frustrated after the last person that stayed with me. And these came from notes that I started taking after all the situations that I had. I literally was taking notes. And so I'm like, maybe I'll do a quick book, and I self-published, and here we are.
Here we are, and thank you so much for sharing to the world.
Thank
And
you.
Miss Nikki, can you recommend a book that influenced your journey?
I didn't hear you.
Can you recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes, my new novel actually called "Loved You, Hated You." It's really powerful, and I think it speaks to a lot of mostly women that have been in abusive relationships, but it has a beautiful love story.
Awesome, awesome, and looking forward for that. And Miss Nikki, let's talk about being a gracious host. What are the key elements of preparing your home mentally and physically to be a relaxed and gracious host?
So the mental part, if you're an introvert like me, that's like the biggest workup, because you're gonna have somebody in your space for. a day or more. And you really have to be honest with yourself if this is something that you're willing to do. So like for me, I have to have time limits because I enjoy my peace and quiet. I'm very introverted. So somebody coming in whenever they need to and all that stuff. It and especially now, I don't think I'll be a gracious host anymore in terms of people coming to stay with me because I really love my peace. But you really just have to go, is this something I'm willing to do? And there's so many people I mean, I've gone to people's houses, they're just like, oh my gosh, come on in. They cleaned the carpet, they made the crystal nice and shiny, and they love to do that. And so you just have to figure out, I think, what it is where you are in your wheelhouse with that, and then go from there. But please make sure the sheets are changed. That's the very least we can do that all across. Make sure you have clean sheets on the bed.
Yes, clean. And of course, there's something inside that make your guests impress. Right, Miss Nikki?
I didn't hear you.
And what is your advice for hosts on managing their own energy and avoiding burnout, especially during longer visits?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I don't think there's an answer. I mean, you have to really know your tolerance level. Like I know mine, like probably a day, two max, and you gotta go. But if you're just like if somebody comes for whatever gets out of town or whatever, and like, hey, can I hang out at your place for a month? Um, Me, no, but somebody else, somebody else, yeah. And then, it's your comfort level, at the end of the day. And that's really important too, because if you're not comfortable, like I know I can't do past a couple of days. So if you end up at my house at this point in my life for like 2 weeks, I have an attitude. So it's not gonna be good. I'm not gonna be a gracious host. So I know this, and especially after I had to put that person out and put their stuff outside, I know that I know where my tolerance is. So understand your tolerance. And if you like people, and there are people that like people around all the time. So I want to stay at your house for a year and you're cool with it, go for it.
Go for it, people.
I'm
And
coming to your house, Daniel, for about 2 months. That okay?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to test your gracious host skills. How about that?
yes, let's test it. And how should hosts handle unexpected guest behaviors or requests that might be inconvenient or outside their comfort zone?
Yeah, that's hard because I don't know if you know the group War, but they're legendary, right? And I had this CDs back in the day, but I had this like um I don't know what you call it, like a limited edition of their CDs, and like all of it, everything in one compact thing. It was a big deal. I actually got it from their record company. And the one person, her name is Sherry. I'm calling her out, and she was with this guy, James. They broke up because I want my music back. But anyway, I said, you can stay, but I only had the one requirement: do not take my music out of this house. So she started, she's like, okay, I won't, I promise I won't. But then she started doing some other stuff, and I was like, hey, this isn't working. And it wasn't actually until after she left, and I went through, I was looking at my CDs and realized, oh, she got me because I had seen her take some other stuff. So, you have to put your big girl and big boy pants on and tell people, hey, you're violating what I'm asking, my request, the rules of the house. So, if you're one of those people that don't like confrontation, well, I don't like confrontation either, but if you're afraid of confronting someone that is violating the rules of the house, then you probably shouldn't let them in. You shouldn't let anybody in because at some point, especially if it's a long term, people get comfortable and they start trying little things. Well, she didn't say anything about that, and so I'll try this, and they'll just keep trying. So you have to be okay with being able to confront someone when you feel your space is being disrespected or it's taxing your energy in some kind of way.
Definitely. So, Miss Nikki, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please don't listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Nikki, that's the one. Or what's one takeaway you hope readers carry with them from your book long after they finish reading?
That whichever role they play, that they remember to always be respectful. That's it.
Yes. Respect, biggest respect, people. So, Miss Nikki Allen, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
knowledge
you.
and wisdom to the world. So, can you
Thank you
please
for
invite
having me, Daniel.
Yeah, so can you please invite our listeners to support your book or your advocacy or any projects that they are doing right now?
Absolutely. So actually, you can see everything in the world that I'm doing if you go to officialnikkiallen.com. That's NIKKIALLEN, and everything is there that I'm doing and about to do.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Nikki Allen because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Miss Nikki, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.